So, hello and a very good evening to all of you present here today. I'm Roshmita Biswas and I'm the creative head of Emojar. In my team, I have Otri Das, who is the editor-in-chief, and Teesta Banerjee, who is the chief co-editor, as my contemporaries. We, of course, have with us Dr. Riya Das, who is the founder and the director of our company, and will also be facilitating this internship with us. So, a little bit about Dr. Riya Das. She has had 12 years of experience in this field. She is a school counselor, an art-based therapist, and along with that, she's a gold medalist and holds a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Calcutta. So before we move on, I would like to pinpoint a few things. Firstly, the classes are on every Tuesday of this month. That is on 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th of September. It begins from 4 p.m. and would last for about an hour. Try logging in 15 minutes before so that you don't get queued. And as we mentioned in the email, Google Meet allows only a limited number of people in a single class. Secondly, you will be having assignments weekly, which will be briefed by Dr. Ria to you all herself. And only on the submission of the assignments, you will be receiving your certificate. We also have decided to announce 10 top performers of those whose performance would be exceptional throughout the internship. They will be getting accredited certificates from the International Association of Therapists, since now we are also an accredited training provider. And there will be top 3 winners who will be selected completely on the basis of performance, participation in the class, and of course the assignments which you will be giving us. And also, those top 3 winners will be getting letter of recommendations from Dr. Riya Das herself. Okay, so before we move on, I would like to say one last note that if any of you face any technical difficulties regarding your Google Meet link or anything of that sort, you may get in touch with O3. And if you're having queries related to your assignments, please get in touch with me. And finally, if you're having any issues related to any emails, information, certificates, once this internship is over, please get in touch with Teesta. We are the admins in the group and all the numbers are there itself. You can just contact us directly. So before we begin the class, we have kept a short and fun quiz, which will be moderated by O3 himself, and then Dr. Ria will take over. So while I start preparing my presentation, O3, please proceed. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, right. So good evening, everyone, to all of you who are present here. We'll be having a short and fun quiz. There are no rules. It's very simple. You'll be presented with a few questions and you'll be provided with 4 answers. One of them is correct, of course. It's more of an MCQ type. We'll wait till Roshmita presents. And just a short disclosure, this adds up to your points being getting the accredited certificates and being one of the top performers. Right?
O3, just 1 second, please. Good evening,
Yes.
everyone. This is Dr. Ria here. While O3 is presenting, just to add on to it, while you are scoring yourself, okay, add up your marks also. Because I'll be presenting you with 4 video quizzes. You're going to observe the video quizzes and you're going to go ahead with it. And we are going to total up our scores. Okay. So I think we are ready. This will be an icebreaker for the
Hello.
session, and then I will take over.
Hello. Excuse me.
Yes,
Where do we respond for the quiz?
only in the chat box. Okay?
Okay.
Clear instructions. No one will speak. Only in the chat box. Because we need to see who's the fastest. And as Roshmita has already mentioned, you will have a token economy system. I hope you all know what token economy is. We are going to add up your scores. We are going to give you certain points for each correct answer. The highest scorers will get additional points. Your assignments will get additional points. And we'll have a weekly scoreboard which will be posted and emailed to you. Okay, depending on that, we are going to choose the 10 best performers. Fine, we are good to go then.
Right. Okay, so good luck, all of you. Roshmita, can we have the first question? Okay. After how many months can GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, can be identified in a person? Can we have the options? Okay, 8, 5, 6, or 12 months. You may start typing down. 6, Asmat Jafri. She got it right. Okay. Okay, a lot of 6 months. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 6 months. Right. So most of you got it correct. Roshmija, can we move to the next question then? Please, I hope you have noted down. Okay. Psychosis is mainly characterized by, can we have the options? Loss of touch with reality, prolonged emotional reaction to a given stress, anxiety, fear, sadness, vague aches and pains, all of the above. It's moving too quick. Okay, I guess it is Tiyasha Roy. No, it's Samin Khalil, if I got your name right. Yeah. Okay then. Yeah, the answer is loss of touch with reality. Can we have the next question? Neurosis is mainly characterized by. Let's move to the options. Madness, prolonged emotional reaction to a given stress, pain in the head, fits of convulsions. Okay, all right. Okay, most of you have answered B. Right, it's the right answer. Okay. Can we move next to the next question? In epilepsy, the patient undergoes, let's look at the options, periods of sadness and happiness, fear and valor, fits of convulsions, loss of consciousness, both B and C. D. Okay, I guess Pranay got it right. It's D, both B and C. Perfect. Can we have the next question, Roshmija? Okay. Alogia is dash symptom of schizophrenia. Okay, so you need to fill in the blank, right? Let's look at the options. Okay. Negative, positive, both A and B, none of the above. Okay, negative. Okay, yeah. I guess it's Agni Mitra. Yeah, it's negative. All right. Let's move ahead. A wide range of symptoms characterize bipolar disorder, but which of the following can trigger a manic episode in someone with the illness? Let's look at the options. Overeating, diabetes, disruption in the sleep-wake cycle, too much of salt in the bloodstream. C, yeah, most of you got it. I guess it's Deepa. Yes. Disruption in the sleep-wake cycle. Let's move to the next question. Okay. So this is a situational one, right? Jamie, while meeting with her primary care physician, states that she has been experiencing frequent panic attacks brought on by feelings of anxiety in social situations. The feelings of fear and anxiety are strongest whenever she is alone in a large crowd or in public spaces where there is no easily identifiable exits in case of an emergency. Jamie could be exhibiting symptoms of which of these disorders? Let's look at the options. Okay. Agoraphobia, GAD, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder. A. Okay, most of you got. I guess it's Pranay. It's A. Okay. To the next question. Which of these interactions between a doctor and a patient utilizes a biopsychosocial model? Right? Let's look at the interactions. A doctor, after diagnosing the patient with a broken foot, prescribed painkillers. A doctor diagnoses a patient with migraines after asking questions regarding length of time and the severity of the symptoms experienced. A doctor who diagnosed a patient with severe back pain recommended changes to how the patient lifts object. And D, a doctor who diagnoses a patient with ulcers asks about stress management. Okay, D, I guess Yusra got it right. It's D. It's D. A doctor who diagnoses a patient with ulcers asks questions about stress management. Okay, let's move ahead then. Okay, Jimmy has been recently experiencing symptoms of anxiety associated with everything he does, including activities that should not cause anxiety. Jimmy could be experiencing schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression, generalized anxiety disorder. Okay, GAD. A lot of people got it. It's quite obvious. Okay, D. Yeah, D is the correct answer. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, which disorder is being portrayed in the picture? I'll give you a few seconds to register the picture. Take a look at the picture carefully, and then we look at the options. Okay, Roshmija, let's look at the options. Okay, dissociative identity disorder, multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, PTSD. Okay, a lot of people got A and B. There's a war between A and B. Okay. The answer is A, DID. Yeah, right. Okay, our last question. Which form of self is being depicted and by whom it was proposed? Was it proposed? Take a look at the picture for a few seconds, then we move to the options. Okay, let's move ahead, Rashmida. Real Self by Carl Rogers, Ideal Self by Carl Rogers, Shadow Self by Carl Jung, and Ego by Freud. C, yes. C is the correct answer. It's Shadow Self by Carl Jung. Okay, with this we come to an end with our quiz. Thank you so much for participating, and I hope you have noted down your points. And Tista has also noted down along with you guys. So thank you all for being so responsive and so interactive. It's indeed, we all are grateful to have you here today. I'll ask Dr. Ria to take over.
Thank you, O3, and great job, all of you. I was just observing your answers, and most of you got them correct, of course. Proceeding with the same, there's another icebreaker I would like to give you. So, Roshmija, can you please share the screen with the PPT?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second.
Well, while she's doing it, I would like to know a quick, maybe, introduction about you all. You must be all in your masters. Most of you must be in your masters in your second year. So quickly, can you tell me which college you're from and what is your aim? What would you like doing after this? Quickly, maybe 1 or 2 words. Just a quick interaction, just to see where you are from, just to get an idea.
Hi, Manasvi Shenvi here. I've recently completed my master's with specialization in clinical, and I'm working right now, and I'm planning to apply for my doctorate this year.
Okay, great.
I'm from Mumbai.
Great. All of you can put it in the chat because I guess there are 73 of y'all. It wouldn't be possible to talk to each one of you, though I would have loved to speak to each one of you. While you are doing this, certain rules or expectations or an overview about the internship. Next slide, please, Roshmija. Okay, what to expect from this internship? I would like to tell you every week we are going to have an interactive session. It will not be a teaching learning session. Of course, I'm going to give you certain guidelines and certain pointers, essentials of taking counseling or clinical counseling ahead. What will be the pointers? What are the mediums? I'll be talking about it. We'll also talk about various career prospects and general guidelines to pursue. Psychological disorders, I will not talk in details because you're expected that you have covered all the psychological disorders, the theoretical part. However, we'll be taking up case histories. Okay, I'll give you certain case histories to look into, and then try to understand what are the pointers, what are the diagnostic criterias, what are the symptoms check, and then you need to work upon that. Today, we are going to majorly look into case history taking and mental status examination, which I'll be shortly talking about. Next slide, Rashmita. We'll be doing a lot of discussions. So whether you write it down or whether you speak, it would be like a blended method. Again, other pointers have been already discussed by Rashmita in the beginning of the session. And I would request engagement in the same, because otherwise it is of no use. The recordings will be available, no doubt, but if you engage, if you get involved with the assignments which we'll be regularly posting in your WhatsApp group or through the mails, it will be a good learning experience for all of you. Next slide, Rashmita. Okay, now time for an icebreaker. I can see a number of people who have written where they are from. Welcome to each one of you. And time for the icebreaker. I would like you to write down the name of someone whom you would like to be, if not yourself, someone else. Whom would that be? Just pause for a while and close your eyes and write it down. Just a quick reflection. This is a quick reflection activity. If not yourself, if you had the ability to transform into someone else, who would that be? You may write down in the chat, or someone may just unmute and talk about it.
Deepa here. I'd
Yes,
like
ma'am.
to be myself.
Okay, that's great. My mom, Lord Krishna. Okay. There's some role models also coming up. Many people are writing no one but myself. That's great. Wonderful. So quickly, to sum up this, why do you think we have this need of becoming someone else? Or people who are writing that I would love to be myself. What do you think can be the disparity? Since we are all studying psychology, what does it reflect? Aditi writes a dog. Okay, that's cute.
Deepa here again. Actually, when we are ourselves, there will be not much of conflicts. If we want to become someone, we have to change a lot of things. Maybe work-wise, we can become someone because we can train, but the self concept, it is hard. That's what I think.
Absolutely. It is basically whom you want to become. If you are very much satisfied with your life, I'm not going into any kind of judgment, but it's generally said that if you're very satisfied with your life, you generally want to be yourself. But again, your interest levels, your personality, what you desire to be, who you desire to be, what you want to achieve, there are so many multiple factors which will, of course, affect the way you feel about yourself. So the moment a client comes to you while you'll be out of college and you'll be dealing with clients or children, whoever is in front of you, either they love themselves immensely or they want to be someone else, constantly striving. There can be several conflicts. So these are the conflicts which we are going to study. Why? Why do they have to transform? Okay, that transformation or the need or the desire or the conflicts which we are having, psychology actually deals with that. And while you're treating the person, while you're talking to the person, these things will surface. And that's what you will be talking about, or healing the person in several possible ways. So taking this concept ahead, let's move on. Okay, before I wanted to discuss about the career options, since you all are all into your masters and then you'll be, working very soon if not this year, the next year. These are the dominant career options which are available who are studying psychology in India. I'm currently only talking about Indian context because there is a lot of difference between Indian psychologists as well as abroad psychologists. Now, if you're talking in terms of India, the most common or dominant career options through psychology after your masters, of course, minimum criteria is masters, at least for in current times. It's counseling psychologist. Most of the population, you'll find them being counseling psychologist, followed by clinical psychologist. Now I've put into bracket MPhil, that's a mandate, without which you cannot label yourself as clinical psychologist. I've found several students coming and asking about this particular confusion. Can I call myself clinical psychologist? No, it's only through RCI registered MPhil you will be entitled to become a clinical psychologist. Okay, for counseling psychologist, however, a master's will do along with practicing under someone, internship with some company or a particular psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. Okay, next option is your school psychologist or child counselor. They generally go hand in hand. There are several diploma, specialized courses, certificate courses for child counseling and school counseling, but nothing comes under the governance of the government. Okay, there are no government ruled or there are no bodies which are governing these particular sectors. Apart from clinical psychology, there are no other governing bodies for psychologists. Okay, psychoanalysts, they need to go through rigorous psychoanalysis curriculum. It generally takes 7 to 8 years to complete that. Only after that you can call yourself a psychoanalyst. Again, rehabilitation psychologists, they need to have a B.Ed in special ed, again registered through RCI. So you'll have your registration numbers, especially for rehabilitation psychologists and clinical psychologists. These two are the mandatory criteria. Apart from that, you have career counselors who again take up diploma courses and certificate courses after their masters to get into this particular sector of career counseling, where you help students and further down to guide them in their career options, not only limited to one particular field, but all the fields starting from class 8. The next option, you have research psychologist, where PhD is a mandatory criteria. Along with it, you need to be very well depth in statistics. Okay, statistical calculations. There are different diploma courses, certificate courses again for this. Last but not the least, professor or a teacher. If you want to become a professor in some college or university, you have to have PhD or NET, SLET. But going by present times, it is seen that even if you have a PhD, a NET is a kind of a subdued compulsion where people with NET and PhD are preferred more. So it is safer that you sit for your NET or state-based exams and then apply for your PhD and complete that in order to get into teaching. Apart from these dominant careers in psychology, you have the non-conventional careers where criminal psychologist, research analyst, where you get jobs in as an analyst in certain companies, where you need to, of course, have economics as a subject, statistics as a subject. You need to be good in maths. So if you have had these subjects in your graduation level or your master's level, you can easily pursue it if you have a knack for research, market research and all. The third type is industrial psychologist, not very much in vogue like criminal psychologist, but of course it's pacing up. Many of the top companies are hiring in-house psychologists, industrial psychologists, where they're looking into employee wellness programs and they are being paid also well. Alternative to industrial psychologist is the HR. In case you feel that yes, you're made for the corporate, you can always do your MBA and then look forward to HR jobs. Because you already have a background in psychology, you will be preferred more in that case. Other areas can be NGOs, where you work as a social service personnel. Then you have sports psychologist. That is also not very common, but yes, many of the individuals are getting into this field and things are catching up. Advertisement is another sector where you're using all the concepts of psychology and applying, your ideas into the advertisement sector and marketing sector. The next three are contemporary careers in therapy, where you can become an art therapist, a play therapist, or a dance movement therapist individually or as a whole. So this is the entire viewpoint about the career options in psychology. I would ask you if you have any questions, particular questions from this slide. Anything you would like to ask in particular?
Hi.
Hello.
See this side. Actually, I want to know more about industrial psychologists. That after graduation, we get preference, or after masters we can do MBA.
See, if you want to become an industrial psychologist, you need to take up industrial psychology and related subjects in your second year of masters, and further do an MBA. If you really want to get into HR, then after graduation, you can directly get into human resource management through MBA. Okay, so this is the difference between the two.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. At the end of the class, I'll be sharing you a form through which you can send in your questions, because it won't be possible to answer each and every question which is coming to us. So what I'll do is compile all the answers and send it across. I think that would be better, but do focus on this slide. We'll be sending you the slides as well. Do focus on this and try to understand what are the mandatory criteria. I'm just quickly going through again. Clinical psychologists need an MPhil from RCI registered institutions. Rehabilitation psychologists need a B.Ed in special ed. Okay, without which you cannot label yourself as that. You cannot have that tagline. Me, in spite of having PhD and other diploma courses and having a master's in clinical psychology, I cannot call myself a clinical psychologist because I have not done my MPhil. Okay, so number of years into the system doesn't matter. You need to have an MPhil degree in order to call yourself a clinical psychologist. Apart from which, none of the other career options has a governing body. Please mind it, because there are so many posters going on which we can see that I'm registered through this and that, and there are no governing bodies at all. Especially art therapy, play therapy, and all these have just recently come up. So be very careful if someone is promising you some kind of value added services. They can be accredited, but there are no such governing bodies in India. If in case you're planning to go abroad and study, best time to do it is after your master's for your PhD level, or if you want to practice there, you have to go earlier through your graduation. But since y'all are into a state where you've already done your master's, you can think about your PhD or your postdoc. There you get study and work options, where you can also sustain your cost of living. You get a lot of scholarships also, which can be made available through your thesis submission. So you need to do a lot of research work on the websites, go to this particular university and find out what they want, and accordingly you have to put your application through. Okay, for that you need your SOPs, LORs, you need to show your internship certificates, you need to show your other certificate courses, diploma courses, and why you're planning to take up that particular course in that particular university. So all these criteria you need to look into. Again, if you're planning to come back to India and practice, their licensing over there, you need to have license to practice, whether you're a clinical psychologist or a counseling or a child psychologist. Every psychologist there needs to register as per the state rules or as per the country rules. So if you have in case registration there, but you cannot come back to India and practice, you need MPhil for practicing here as a clinical psychologist. You can, however, practice otherwise as a counseling psychologist or any other profession which has been listed.
Ma'am, can people after their masters in clinical psychology practice privately?
Yes, of course. After your master's, you're free to practice. It is wiser that you practice under someone under supervision hours. In India, again, there is no concept of supervision hours, but that is very important for your self learning. Okay, so if you can get hold of a psychologist or a psychiatrist who under whom if you can work as an intern or just as an observer, it would be good for you as into your professional life.
In
Okay.
hospitals as well, right?
Yes, hospitals as well. Generally, colleges or universities arrange for certain visits to the hospital and internships. So make full use of that. Okay, your own department should be having a setup where you go and practice, you take tests, you conduct certain tests, and then come up with a report. So those things just keep in watch. Do not miss out on those opportunities because it's very rare in India to find those. Okay. I'll come back with all the answers to the questions which you have asked, but overall, I wanted to give this gist because we have a lot to cover today. Next slide, Roshmija. Okay, concept of internships. First of all, I would like to highlight this because we have been observing. I'm not going against anyone, but again, there are so many labeled internships where you pay a lot and then get the internship. Internship, the word means it is unpaid both ends. Okay, neither will you be paying, neither will I be paying as a company to you. Internship is just for your experience. Okay, so payment expectations, if you're giving someone, just be careful whether it's an internship or a training. People who are taking money from you, it's a training, it's not an internship. Second of all, there will be some kind of work involved apart from the teaching learning procedure. And again, in psychology, ethics come into a big picture. Why? Because when a client is sitting in front of you, okay, the person is speaking to you, there's a third person overlooking, hearing everything. That becomes an extraneous variable. It becomes uncomfortable for the other person. In my college days, we used to go to different hospitals and we used to observe certain, people who are coming from the suburbs. That was totally free in the hospital and they had no words. They could not voice their opinion. So what happened was the doctor was sitting with many other psychiatrists and we were also sitting there as interns and noting down everything the person is saying. Now understand the level of discomfort the person has. I have my personal issues. It's psychological. It's not a physical symptom. I have a lot of things to express which I am unable to. Right? So this is one of the drawbacks and it's of ethical consideration in psychology that if you are sitting there as an onlooker, what will be the level of extent through which you will be, understanding the client. Generally in your colleges, you will be only talking to the person after your training is over. You will be talking to the person, you will be taking case history, and then after the diagnosis, you check it with your professors or the psychologist, whoever is appointed there. And that is supposed to be done, not the other way around. Okay. Yes, next slide.
I have a question regarding this. Since we came to the ethics issue, since you gave the difference between clinical and counseling psychologist, a clinical psychologist has an RCI license, so he or she can be held accountable for his actions. But a counseling psychologist does not. So who does if a problem occurs with the patient or something? So who is accused or who gets the blame?
I got your question, Shumon. Thank you for bringing up. See, clinical psychologists, the only difference between the two is basically clinical psychologists, they are registered to sign in official documents. Like I can maybe conduct psychometric testing on someone, but I cannot sign the report. I'm not authorized to do that. Whereas a clinical psychologist is authorized to do that. Okay, so ultimately, if you want to really work with patients, psychologically disturbed patients, then you need to have a clinical, MPhil in psychology. clinical psychology. Only then you will be allowed to test and then record data and then sign the documents. In case, for instance, the person goes through a tough time and maybe there's a suicidal attempt or there is some crime added to it, in severe cases like in schizophrenics and other personality disorders, there you might have enough documentation. Those clinical psychologists will be able to stand in court and defend against themselves. Since in India, we also don't have the concept of insurance, right? So it becomes really very difficult, and without any governing body for others, like counseling psychologists, they are not authorized to kind of sign any document, any formal document. That will not be valid in the face of law. Okay, say for instance, a person comes to me and says that I'm suicidal and this and that, all the symptoms are there of major depressive disorder, and I kind of diagnose in my own way, right? But the later diagnostics will be only done by a clinical psychologist, where you need to refer this person to a clinical psychologist. But for instance, if you have certain problems, everyday problems or certain problems which are not that severe, it's more neurotic, not basically psychotic, you can always take up the case and guide the person. Counseling psychologists are more in numbers, in fact. This is one major debate which is going on, but I hope I could make it clear to all of you. Okay? Okay. Any other question, if it pops in your mind, you're free to write down in the form where I can get back to you. Okay, next slide, please, Roshmija. Okay, this quiz was done by O3. Next slide. I have 4 videos which I would like to show you briefly. Okay, it will be played briefly, and you need to understand which all psychological disorders are there. Why I'm not discussing disorders? Because I'm pretty sure you have been through with your disorders and you are thorough with them, at least. So tend to mark yourself. In case your marks are lower than say 8, you need to brush up the psychological disorders. We'll be sending you a short PDF on psychological disorders so that you can go through each of it and try to accustom yourself with everything. Right? I found this particular reel very convenient to understand. So this is for your reference. We'll be briefly looking into 4 different videos. Next slide. Okay, can someone tell me which disorder are we looking at? There are 2 pictures of the same place. The left-hand side is a person who is perceiving without any psychological disorder. The right one, this person has this particular disorder. Can someone highlight what this distortion in perception would be? A very common symptom in one of the disorders. Social anxiety, no. OCD, no. Hallucination, no. Bipolar, no. ADHD, no. Oh my God. Everyone is putting one different disorder so that it sums up to be at least one correct. No. Okay. Rashmija, can you play the videos once? Is it visible at your end, the video? There are 2 videos. Okay, let me just try. Roshmi, just stop presenting. Maybe I'll give it a try from my end. Just give me a moment. Okay, look at this. Now look at this. Now can someone tell me? Manasvi is to some extent right. No other responses? Come on. Come on. What all disorders are there? Think about it. The answer is autism. This is an error in perception. Many of us are not actually aware what autism is. We generally attach this particular concept of autism being just children or people who are aloof from others. But why are they aloof? Why are they secluded? Why don't they talk? It's because of misperceptions. Their perception about their environment is drastically different from what we perceive in. They have a heightened sense of sound. There are flashes of light. They look at the world in a very, very different perspective. So this was one of the examples of ASD. Okay, so moving on to the next one. I hope the audio was fine
Yes, ma'am.
at your end. Okay, so next one, listen to this very carefully, okay?
How long did you say you stayed in?
6 hours. It took 6 hours to watch them move in and out.
Do you ever see things that other people don't seem to just see?
No. But I do know things that other people don't. It's a given.
What would this be? The last sentence was, but I do know things that other people don't know. I have a gift. Most of y'all are writing schizophrenia, but I just asked about the symptom. Okay, Aparajita. Aparajita Ghosh. Tista, note it down, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes, it is delusion of grandeur because, as you can see, she was talking about certain beliefs, very strong beliefs, and of course, it is more related to the gift which she has, which reflects it's a delusion of grandeur. Well done. Okay, next one. Schizophrenia is a broader term which we are using, but if we talk about the symptom check, we are maybe overgeneralizing the entire symptom. So we cannot jump into conclusion. One of the skills as a counselor you need to develop. Okay. The next one. This is a bit longer, but we can just quickly go through this.
Hi, morning. Did you sleep well last night? Kept waking up like always.
All right. What's your first day of school? I hope you do well.
Oh, thank you, Mom.
Make sure you eat your food and take your happy pills.
Oh, let's just call them for what they are and to do presents.
Are you gonna get to school and I'll see you later to pick you up for the therapy
Yeah.
session?
Okay, I'll text you. Bye.
Oh my god. This is interesting.
Tell me about it. I know that. Like, Not literally puts me to sleep. I wish I could just be at home making music instead.
That's really cool. You make music.
Yeah, I do. It's pretty fun.
I'm Sarah, by the way.
I'm Brittany. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I know that. Like, university is not for me. I don't even know why I'm here. Like, I would be sleeping in that Tuesday anyways.
But you make music. That's really cool.
Thanks. You should come see me.
I will, for sure. Of course, just let me know.
Shh.
Hi there. Do you mind if I study here?
Yeah, sure. Also, can you please keep the music down? I really want to sing.
Yeah, no problem. My name's Sophie, by the way.
I'm Emma.
What program are you in?
Life sciences. You?
Same. We should study together.
What are your plans after?
I want to go to med school.
Same, yes. But let me warn you, I take my studies really seriously. So even right now, I'm reading 5 chapters for next week because we already have readings, right? So you don't mind, I don't mind.
Oh, no, not at all. I had a feeling you were in like lifestyle, but I just completely forgot. Brittany! Emma! Oh, wait, that's Brittany. That's Emma. No, I swear, that's Brittany. I met her today. It's Emma. I met her today. She told me it's Brittany. Oh. Maybe we talk about different people. Maybe. It's fine. Yeah. Anyways, I gotta go to class, but it was nice meeting you.
Okay, so what do you think? Which particular disorder does this reflect or talk about? The symptoms which you can see. Responses? Come on, no one. This was your observation task as well. As counselors, as we are seeing these particular 4 videos, I'll be talking about few skills, counseling skills later on. Overgeneralization, having a very listening ear, opening up your senses, everything will be required as a counselor or a psychologist when you're dealing with your clients. Every small bit of information will also be very crucial. So no responses at all? Is no one sending or I'm not getting? Which one? No responses.
Ma'am, people are typing it out. You're probably not receiving it at your end.
Oh, I don't know what's wrong then. Now I got it. But I got only one, ADHD. She seems to be hyperactive as reflected in her gait, and she forgot the name because she might not heard the name in the first place. Bipolar personality disorder, DID, multiple personality. Okay. So those who have written dissociative identity disorder, DID is the correct answer because this was a typical case. I had extracted this particular video part from the entire case study, and she had multiple personality disorders. There were 3, there were 2 alter egos and herself. Okay, the alter egos which you saw just now, and there was the real self which was portrayed later. So the answer is DID. Exactly. We no longer call it split personality. Okay, that name has changed. Multiple personality disorder has changed to DID right now. And there were certain observation in the beginning of the video. Did you observe something? The mother was talking about taking the antidepressant. So how do you think it correlates with DID? There's something called pan-neurosis and pan-psychosis where you have associated symptoms as well. So many a times, we most often ignore the associative symptoms and we only focus on the chief symptoms. Please do not do that. I'll be discussing further as to how to take case history and go ahead with it. So we'll be looking into the same. Now the next one and the last video. Be careful about what you see, and I'll just play it for a brief period of time, okay? You can watch this later on, the full length.
Don't answer. They'll know who you are.
You're a waste of space.
Mom, you're not sharing your screen. Is it only
Oh,
me
is
who
it?
can't see? Oh.
No, ma'am, we can't see.
Oh, 1 second.
Waste of our time.
Stupid. So stupid. Worthless. We hate you.
He's gonna pick up the phone.
They'll know if you lie.
Rain. It's
Something
rain.
wrong. Weather.
Poison.
He's hanging up. Don't eat. Out to get you.
Poison.
They know about you. Poison. They know. They know about you.
Is something wrong? Weather.
What are you going to do about it?
Something wrong.
Tired.
Don't eat it. Poison. Poison.
Stay here. It is all your fault.
Oh.
No, no, no.
They know it's you.
Don't open the door.
You hear that?
No, don't open it. Don't open it.
They're here, and it's all your fault.
You did it.
You should have used your mind to stop it.
Stop it. You have to take control.
Delusion of persecution. Samin, yes, it's command hallucinations. There are, of course, delusions because the belief is very strong, but at the same time, you could see a multiple hallucinatory, activities where you have observed the pizza also moving. There is something inside, and the person will be killed if the person has it. And command hallucination, of course, very well said, because the voices in the head are continuously telling him, commanding him not to do certain things. And persecutory, why? Because there's a sense of being killed or being harmed by someone. Okay, there's a constant fear. So well done, all of you. These 4 videos were basically to heighten your level of involvement as well as your observation, which most of you were successful, of course. But in case, if you feel, do a self-analysis also. If you feel that, yes, you need to, read through the disorders more in depth, I think that would be much more better. Okay. Moving ahead, Roshmija, can you take it over now? The slide. This will be a quick analysis of where you stand. If you've got more than 8 In fact, more than 10 out of 15, it's a good way to start off. If not, please read through the DSM. ICD-10 is not much in use, and abnormal psychology textbooks, references, and if we have certain PDFs, we'll be sending it across via mail and in your WhatsApp group. Okay, next one. Now, steps to treatment planning. Why we are starting off with this is after you're thorough with your disorders and the symptoms, and you know exactly which disorder symptoms are these, your very first session will go into case history taking, understanding the client, and rapport building. Rapport building is extremely, extremely important. It is the basis for all your forthcoming treatment plans and your therapy sessions. So put more time, even if it takes 2 to 3 sessions to rapport build, please invest that time. Okay, especially when you're working with rigid clients. Rapport building helps a lot. Case history taking, we are going to take up briefly, and symptom check. After you have done your symptom check comes the initial diagnosis. We do a brief diagnosis of the symptoms and we check with the DSM and try to figure out what disorder the person may be going through. If it's a normal day-to-day life incident or a stressor or something related to stress management, we tend to symptom check all the essential criteria, like all the essential diagnosis we need to undergo, where we have to see what kind of anxiety level is there, what kind of stressors are there. We need to do that background work as well. Next come, after the initial diagnosis, you have the diagnostics or the psychometric testing based on your case history taking and mental status examinations. Okay, these two are very important when you're starting off with therapy sessions. So diagnostics will always depend on the psychometric test reports, which has to be done through a registered clinical psychologist, not a counseling psychologist. Okay, those reports which are generated by counseling psychologists are not valid. It cannot be presented in the face of law if the requirement arises. Now, only after the psychometric testing is done, the diagnostics have been done, you can go ahead with the final diagnosis. That means you confirm that this person is going through this particular disorder, based on which you're going to plan your treatments and your interventions, followed up by your progress notes. Okay, so this is the entire documentation procedure of a treatment planning. Fine, it's an elaborate process, but you need to engage in order to keep yourself safe as well as your client safe. Documentation is extremely, extremely important. Next slide, Roshmita. Now, diagnosis. What is diagnosis? My initial diagnosis will be based on my observation, my case history taking, mental status examination, which we have shorted into mini mental status examination for clients whom you feel do not need that rigorous examination. And then we focus on the DSM criteria. We check back with the DSM and then try to figure out what kind of problems are arising or where I need to intervene for a treatment plan. Next, Roshmita. We'll be looking into this. Next slide. Okay. Now, case history taking. Each one, each one of us have a different format of case history taking. But general guidelines will always include an in-depth kind of record making of the birth history. Okay, we have a form for that, the birth history. Second is the developmental milestones. Third is the other demographics, which include the family history and the social setup. These are mandatory criteria, whether the person is psychotic, neurotic, or is just a everyday life problem which the person is coming to you for. Many a times, people will just walk in and start talking directly to you, okay, without any hindrance. At that point of time, it will be your duty while you are talking, while you're wrapping up the session, to find out other details. Or if you have a receiving reception, over there, people generally tend to fill out forms. Like, what's your father's name, mother's name, most probably the general income of the family, and what's your birth order, whether it was cesarean or normal, All these are generally taken up before the session starts, and once you have your notes in place about the demographics and the basic history taking of the person has been done, then you take in your patient. That makes your work much more easier. Okay, so the step one, these are the steps which I have elaborated. The first one is introduction as well as rapport building, where you're talking freely and trying to figure out how the person is, what the preferences are, how would you go about, whether the person is extremely logical, whether the person is emotional, whether there is a blend method which you need to understand to undergo. This, why do you think this is very important? Can someone speak on this? Why do you think it's very important to understand the personality type of the person first, and then only proceed?
Yeah, I guess logical clients will be always looking for someone to validate their thoughts, while emotional clients will be looking someone
Right.
to validate their emotions, right?
Right, absolutely. Logical clients will always want this, to be things to be done like this. They'll come and tell you nothing is working out. Give me something immediately where I can work on. Their anxiety level is very high on the basis of their intellect. Okay, and the other way around, that you will find other clients who would just like to come and vent out and vent out and vent out. If you're talking about just the neurotic population, not the psychotic one. Okay, psychotic patients, of course, need a lot more intervention than neurotic people need. So this data will help you to kind of design your treatment plan in that way. Okay. Next is the present complaint. What kind of complaint the person is coming to you with? Of course, there will be a symptom check. Like, for example, I've given shortness of breath, palpitations, constant worries, and rapid heartbeat. All indicates that there is some form of anxiety in the person. Whether it's a disorder or not, we further find out. Okay. So the next step to find out in depth what would be the other symptoms, associated symptoms, or what the severity of the symptoms, duration of the symptoms, the 4D of psychological disorders, we are going to clarify here. So it can be the site where exactly the problem started. Say, for instance, the person said that it happened when I was in a plane. Okay, in midair. Second one, when was the onset? At what age was the onset? Okay, you get the age also, when, how long it has been there for. The character of the problem, what is the suffering like? How much do you feel suffocated, or what all other things are there which you would like to talk about pertaining to the specific symptoms? Then what are the associations? Did you see something at that point of time, or were you thinking about something else which triggered this particular incident in you? Then is it every day you are facing after that, or is it only when you get up in the plane? Or is it that every place you go to, maybe a crowded place or a suffocated place you go to, a constricted place you go to, you're facing this particular problem? And the time course, how long this has been happening. Okay, and what are the relieving factors? What relieves you of that, those symptoms of shortness of breath and rapid heartbeat? How does it reduce? And how, on a point of 1 to 10 scale, how severe would you mark it? I may tell you it's just a 7. Someone else may tell me, maybe Aditi may tell me that it's a 9-pointer. Okay, so severity will also depend on what kind of treatment is required. Say, for instance, a person who's telling you it's 7 and it has been happening maybe once or twice, they will do well with grounding exercises. But a person with maybe an 8 or a 9 and it has been a constant affair for them, they need more rigorous exercises, more catered treatment plans than just simple anxiety management. Okay, so based on this, your entire treatment plan will be resting upon. So spend more time on this. Okay, the acronym Socrates, you can remember and maybe note down while you are taking the case history, this particular component. Okay, next one, please. The next part would be past medical history. This is important. Family medical history is also very important. You need to include those and try to figure out whether there are any heart ailments or not, or any other associated physical problems or not. Then you have the drug history, medicines which the person is on, okay, if any, family history, and social history. What's the social networking system? It's not the social Instagram networking system. It is about the real social networking system which the person has, or whether there is enough support or not, whether there is enough number of family members at home or not. Everything, as we know, social support is extremely important, whether the person is a loner or not. All these data will come into consideration in your case history taking. Then you have the developmental history, which we have a form, which we are going to share it with you, and your demographic data, which is generally taken before the client comes to you. Or you can take it alongside, but that will save a lot of time if you have that particular setup. Okay, or if you can just mail it to them, they fill it up and bring it back to you. That will save a lot of time. Okay. Now, the other parts are extremely crucial, and you need to be in person because you're observing the person when the person is speaking to you, the body language, the physical appearance. Everything will come under the mental status examination criteria. Next slide, Roshmita. Summary of history is extremely important. After you note down everything, you need to summarize the facts. Okay, whatever the person has shared with you, you need to summarize it, and again give it back to the person in a way that you are clarifying it. You need clarification, so it's more like paraphrasing. You're phrasing it again and trying to understand all the information which you have got is correct or not. Only after that, if the patient has some particular questions or some feedback, you're supposed to go into interaction, right? And if you're happy with the overall thing, then you document it for further overall analysis. So this is the entire format of case history taking, which we follow in different ways. Okay, and whenever we require it, we put it across. Certain information for children, we get it from the parents. If you see that the client is extremely rigid, he's not disclosing, he or she is not disclosing much information, throughout the sessions which we incorporate, we tend to find out certain data alongside. So it will depend on your level of expertise, how you get this information done, but you have to get this information in place for your diagnosis to be correct. Fine. The next one, Roshmita. Okay, now this one, the mini mental status examination, we had already had a short workshop on it. It's available on our YouTube channel. You can go and check it. The form also, we are going to give it to you. It's a very short form of mental status examination. And what I'll be showing you is the mini mental status examination rapid form. You can rapidly fill it up for your reference and keep it ready with you, because MSc is a very, very elaborate procedure. And next slide, Roshmita. People who needs it generally, why this is important, because you'll get an overall viewpoint if there are any kind of neurological disorders, if there are any brain dysfunctions, especially in psychotic people, you have to have this done. Okay, so that you know what's the severity of the symptoms. Next slide. You can read through these portions which I've listed on the slides. It will be useful for you. Generally, the MSc is done in the first 2 sessions, 1 or 2 sessions, and consent, of course, is taken. Also, a part of it is through your observation, which you may not disclose to the person, but you have a checklist. I'll be showing you briefly what the checklist looks like. You have a checklist which you keep on marking off. And in the end, you kind of sum up whatever information you have got. And it's an excellent source of documentation. And while you are into the sessions, while you're conducting the sessions, you also conduct in between to check how the person is progressing. Next slide, Roshmita. I think we have covered it. Okay, move to the previous slide. I would show you what all forms you'll be getting. Just give me a minute. So this is the first form which you'll be getting. It's a rapid record form. You have every symptom listed here, the general description, the appearance, which is common for all kinds of problems. Then you have your mood and affect, perception. In the next page, you have your thought disorders or the thought processes which you have, the sensory and cognition, judgment, insight, reliability, and the summary of the entire global functioning. Okay, so this is the glossary of all the difficult terms which are used. If you are unable to understand any, you can refer to it and do a quick check on the mental status of the individual. There are more simplified forms which we'll be sending across. These are very simplified forms. You can merge the two data. If you have missed out on the other, you can add it and make your own forms. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to have all these, but these are the 5 general criteria which we look into. Okay, so all these data you need to keep in place. Along with that, we'll be sharing the mini mental status examination. That is also very useful for getting the initial data which you're looking for. Okay, so I hope the case history part is clear to all of you, why it's important and what all things you need to include. Along with that, the mental status examination. We'll shortly come up with the live on mental status examination and explaining in details. But for the time being, you can keep this as a reference with yourself. Right? Roshmija, please share the slide for your assignments. Roshmija?
Yes, I'm coming.
So for your assignment, for all of you, what you need to do is make an awareness video or a PPT less than a minute on any of the psychological disorders which you are interested in. It's an open choice. Once you do it, send us on Instagram or on Facebook or through mail, and do tag, put it up in your stories and tag us so that we exactly know who has been doing the work. And also conduct a mini mental status examination or MSE, whichever is possible, within a week's time on any of your chosen subject. At home, you can have, maybe they don't have a psychological disorder, but it would be great if you practice it with someone. Okay, we'll share you the video link of the mini mental status examination. It's pretty easy to conduct, and we'll give out the form also. You can take the printout of both and do it. Keep filing your work. The video will not be, you will not be able to file up, okay, but you need to put it up on your story so that we know that you have tagged us and we can mark you off on that. Second, the mini mental status examination, you have to work out and put it in your file, either in PDF form or physically. If you're doing it physically, you have to click a picture and keep it recorded. End of the 4 weeks, we are going to ask for a total PDF of whatever work you have done. Right? And the next slide, Roshmija. These are bonus pointers which you can work on. Choose any topic, any of the topic from the below stated, and write a 600 to 800 word article, which if we feel that yes, it's up to the standards, we'll put it up on our blog, okay, on our website. And or the posters on any of the psychological disorder symptoms, only the symptoms. Okay, chart of psychological disorders or various axes of DSM. These are the bonus pointers. Those who are sending in will get additional points for it, apart from your assignment. Okay, I guess many people have raised their hands. Yes, Sakshi, we can take a couple of questions and then we'll dismiss the meeting.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Thank you for such an informative first session, first of all.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about the PowerPoint presentation.
Mhm.
Can you send us the email where we'll have to submit it? And also the one where you told the chart for the axis, that is to be presented in a chart format or in a poster format? Can you specify
It could
about
be
it?
good if you can digitally do it so that you can put it up maybe on our website or somewhere. If not, then you can do it handwritten also, hand done also, whichever you are comfortable in.
Also, can you send us the email where we have to send the file?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
There's no restriction on the number of slides, but it should not exceed more than a minute. Okay, that's your assignment. It should not exceed more than a minute. You can make an awareness video. We would prefer making awareness videos because that in that way you can reach out to more people. As you know, awareness is nil almost in our country. So that would be good if you can share it also. Okay. So any other questions?
Ma'am, I have a question. For cases like if a person has suicidal ideation or tendencies, these kind of persons, they do not take the therapy sessions for a long time. They might need an immediate kind of help. So we do not administer the MSC forms at that time, right?
Yes.
But how after dealing with that immediate threat, then can we take the MSC forms? Like after we dealt with that ideation problem, when that comes to seizing, then can we go back to how why did it occur and why did it start?
See, if you are more accustomed with the different kinds of disorders, of course, you will have a quick idea of what the disorder might be. Okay, but if the person is very reluctant, you cannot force the person to give you data what you need. So very tactfully during your sessions only, you have to include maybe 1 or 2 questions per sessions and see how the person is responding to it. If not the straight way, we have to work the other way around. But for our documentation, MSc is basically for our documentation and understanding, and so that our diagnosis doesn't go wrong. Okay, the more data you have, the more concrete your diagnosis will be. Like for instance, if you go to a doctor with a physical problem, they give you a series of tests to be conducted. They have their diagnosis ready, but they will not prescribe any medicine unless and until you get those things done. So what are those medical reports giving you? They are giving you surety that yes, this is the problem. Maybe first week you go and give, the doctor gives you medicine, but it's not working. Then the doctor will tell you that go and get these tests done. After the tests are done, then again he changes the medicine if required. Okay, so MSc is basically for a surety that yes, this is my diagnosis and I'm on the correct track, and whether my treatment is having any kind of changes in the person or not, whether there is any progress or the person is not actually benefiting from the treatment. So we have a scope to kind of modify what we are doing or become sure that yes, our treatment is working, he's progressing, he or she is progressing. Whether it's done in the first 2 sessions, typically it's done in the first 2 sessions. If you have a very rigid client, you need to percolate the entire thing throughout your sessions, but it's important for you. So I'm sending you a quick form with so that I know what all questions you have, and we'll discuss, or maybe we'll send you the written format by next week. And other things also, the PPT and other handouts, whatever we have, we'll send it across in the WhatsApp group as well as your mail. Okay, for next week, we are going to look into the various counseling skills which are required, maybe the next step which we can develop on the counseling skills, and then we'll take it further. Okay, I'll update you on what all topics we'll be doing next day.
Okay. Also, ma'am, by when do we need to submit our assignments?
By next week. Within this week, try to complete and keep it ready. But a final document will be taken from all of you after the 4 classes are over. Like the 4 weeks are over, we'll be taking. And on the 5th class, we'll be having a scope of presenting a paper or maybe some topic you would like to present it. We'll have the entire forum with us, and we'll have certain paper presentations from your end. Okay, either you can work in groups, we'll proceed and see what all which thing works the best. Either it will be a group based activity or individual activity. Okay, then all of you take care. See you next week, and do keep on sending your work. We'll be thrilled to see it in the WhatsApp group. Also, we are going to open it, and you can send in your own queries and your own work, whatever you're doing. Apart from this, also, if you're doing certain other project work, you can send in across. Okay, so see you next week. Bye bye. Take care, all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye bye.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I want to know the video we have to make. It's particularly related to some psychological disorder only. Like if I am making video in depression, so I have to speak about depression in that video.
Pertain to only one topic, that would be easier to grasp, right? If it's depression, stick to only depression or its types and make an awareness video basically.
Okay,
Because,
related to that topic.
Yeah.